Like, tell us where the $86.3 million is going to. Tell us who makes those decisions. This is Byron, Lazine, and Nicole White, and you are tuned into episode 354 of The Real Word.
Word is up.
So NAR is really good at one thing, and that is allocating funds, spending money. NAR, according to Open Secrets, spent more money than any other trade organization or just organization in general in the 2024 election year. Okay, so they spent their lobbying efforts hit a record high last year, and no trade group, corporation, or organization spent more to influence policies and candidates in 2024 than the National Association of Realtors. In our last pod, Nicole, we were talking about advocacy,
right?
Being to, I thought, to both of us, like that top out of the 4 reasons NAR exists, and NAR came out with their 4 reasons on Realtor Mag at the end of the last pod. You can go check it out. I thought the advocacy was the one out of the 4 that was the most meaningful,
right?
And delivered the most to members. And so this, you would argue, that is what advocacy is. It is influencing, these politicians. Now, let's just separate the two, because we reported there was a New York Times investigation, and we covered that report rather on the American Property Owners Alliance, the APOA, which was alleged to have spent more on conservative groups, Republican aligned super PACs. And that is a different spending. Okay, so that they had references in that story that it was like dark money, and you couldn't track. It was whatever that secret. That $12 or $13 million is separate from the $86.3 million NAR spent on lobbying efforts in 2024. It's also that 86 number is also significantly more than the $50 million it spent the year prior in 2023. Obviously, 2024 was
election.
It was an election year. Open Secrets, which did this study, found that the overall spending on federal lobbying in 2024 hit a new record. So it's not like NAR was alone in this.
Right.
It was a record of $4.4 billion on the total spend. Finance, insurance, and real estate sector accounted for more than 636 million of the 4.4 billion. So finance, insurance, real estate, lobbying to get preferred candidates in office that are going to kind of help protect those business practices, I guess would be the best way to put that. Obviously, NAR has been under the microscope all year, all of that. But this large increase in NAR's lobbying spending, Nicole, there was an NAR spokesperson that was they requested comment from Real Estate News and gave some quotes here. So this was over email. The NAR spokesperson said a majority of our spending for 2024 was put towards our efforts to get pro-realtors candidates elected at every level of government in this year's election. At a time where the housing industry is lacking both affordability and inventory for families across the country, it was imperative that we work tirelessly to promote candidates who would protect and promote the interests of the real estate industry. A couple things. I like to pick apart words, I guess, at times, but the interest of the real estate industry, to me, when I hear that, that's realtors.
Right.
The industry. But the beginning of that sentence was like affordability and inventory for families across the country. That would be housing market. Real estate industry would be something for agents. And I would just love more context on that. Like, okay, what are the plans? And
what are the plans of the people that we're supporting, right?
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out the pod. We're going to get you right back. We recently just transferred our BAMX platform over to School, the number one education and community platform in the world. No more Facebook spam. All of our content is uploaded there. If you want to join the thousands that have already done so using BAMX to elevate their business, just hit the link down below or go to school.com/BAMX. Now let's get back to today's pod. What are the plans of the people we're supporting, and
Right.
who picks the people that we're supporting?
Right. Yeah.
How do those folks get picked? A lot of it, I think, has a lot to do with local, because of the local boards are influencing some of those decisions on who those local candidates would be. Of course, one of the things that concerns me is, so politicians will take money from a variety of different sources, and then they have to do certain things to obviously try to keep those bureaucrats happy. I mean, that's basically what NAR is. It's a bureaucracy. And so to keep the bureaucracy happy that gave you some money, you have to do things like we saw last week. What did we see last week? We saw Jerome Powell in the House and in the Senate for his testimony on fiscal policy. He does this testimony, I think, once a quarter or twice a year. I talked about this on the hot sheet, last week. What you saw, and we went through some of these on the hot sheet, Nicole, some of these clips from the politicians asking Jerome Powell what he's going to do about the price of housing, which Jerome Powell really has no control on the price on home prices.
Mm-hmm.
Yet for 2-3 hours, you'd have politicians ask the same question as somebody else, like say it was the House committee, somebody, a member of the House House of Representatives asked a question. 25 minutes later, another congressman or woman asks the same question. And they read these questions. They read them. So, some college kid that like got a job in DC, writes these questions. They basically they want to sound smart, but these politicians are so dumb that they don't hear that the question was already asked, or maybe they do, but they don't have any other questions on the piece of paper. So they ask the same question over and over again. And they're really just generic questions, just some kid right out of school that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't even know what the world looks like, living in DC, writing crap on a piece of paper and handing it to the person that they're working for. And none of the questions make any sense, because Jerome Powell is saying the same thing over and over again. I don't control home prices. I can't influence the free market in terms of inventory. That's something you guys can do from a federal level if you want to influence it. Politicians can have some influence on policy on inventory. They haven't done anything on it in 10 years now. But they have to, my point about that is they have to ask the question. These politicians took money from NAR, so they at least have to check the box and say, hey, I asked the question to Jerome Powell. I got my little 2-minute soundbite of acting like I care, but never doing anything about the problem. And I think that's where NAR can be more effective with our advocacy dollars. I mean, when you add up last year's spending of $86 million in a year that they agreed to pay huge payouts on a settlement. So it's not like there was, we said, NAR has said spending is going to go down in a lot of areas. It went up by 30 plus million on the lobbying, and they spent in American Properties Owner Allowance another 10 to, I think it was 12, 13 million when we covered that. And that New York Times investigation obviously put some heat on that. So you're talking about, what is that? Like $100 million of spending just in 2024 alone? Like, where's the accountability attached to the dollars? Where when you give the money, you're saying, what's the result we're getting? Now, there are some things that they point to for what was done in 2024. NAR put money behind a number of initiatives last year, including defeating a proposed real estate transfer tax in Chicago. That's good for Chicagoans. Would they be Chicagoans? Chicagans?
Weans?
Chicagans?
Chicagoans?
What do they call folks from Chicago? That's great for people in Chicago.
I can't believe it's Weans.
So they put,
Chicagoans?
I don't know. Now,
I don't know.
NAR has a building in Chicago. So like, do we care more about Chicago than other places? They defeated a proposed transfer tax in Chicago. I think that's a good thing. These transfer taxes that a lot of these, you've seen it in California a lot. California crushed the LA luxury market. It can really put the handcuffs on a free market, helping pass zoning reform in Oregon, defeating a vacancy tax ballot in California, and stopping rent control efforts in Iowa and Delaware. It's hard, Nicole, to take national money and then put it into these
Specific.
local,
Mhm.
these
Yeah.
specific issues in local areas, and then get member buy-in across the board, because they're not seeing it in their market, right? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. For sure. Well, I mean, that's what she's been saying from the very beginning, though, is like transparency, transparency, transparency. But we still have yet to see that. Like, we're just
And
seeing this big number and still nothing, like you're saying, to follow up with to show us exactly what this is all supporting.
and NAR put that money up as opposed to those local boards.
Yeah.
At the national level, NAR supported policies or reforms related to veteran housing, accessory dwelling units, and mortgage costs. I mean, all of those, I want mortgage costs to go down for consumers. Definitely want our veterans coming back to have housing available for them. And accessory dwelling units, I think, are a good thing. I mean, what's your take on ADUs? You think
No, I think they're great. I think they're a way to make housing affordable, right?
do
Or
you think do you want them in your backyard though, or are you like not in my backyard type of person on
hmm.
ADUs? Like on your street, if everybody built an ADU.
Well, I feel like my street's a little bit different. I mean, I'm zoned.
Oh, I feel like my streets. Here we
No,
go.
I'm already like my house is already a multifamily. Like I could do a multifamily. I'm commercial, so I could run a business out of my house. Like I have a restaurant that's like diagonal. I have the post office across the street from my house. So like an ADU wouldn't bother me. It's already like again, I think I'm always the wrong person to ask. Like buyers are always like, "What do you think of this house?" And I'm like, "Well, I live on a WLI. My basement's dirt, and I live next to a firehouse. So like an ADU is like nothing to
Nicole's
me."
house was built before the founders wrote the
It's not that
Constitution.
old. I have houses around me that are at least 100 years older, but
It's
an
true.
ADU is like the least of my worries in that neighborhood. So
What if like your typical cul-de-sac neighborhood, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do ADUs."
I just don't think that there's anything wrong with them. You don't
Yeah,
like the idea?
no, I'm fine with it. I'm just getting your
No,
take.
I'm good with ADUs. I think as long as, you're following like the basics of, like coverage and, we're up against
Well,
septics. So it's like there does need to be, some sort of policing when it comes to it for sure.
yeah,
But
and so my question on NAR, like, what did they actually accomplish on ADUs? Because it still comes down, at a national level, NAR
still
supported
very much
policies.
local. Yeah.
That's a very local zoning situation. Okay,
Yeah.
so by them saying they supported it, that's like one of their big three things that they accomplished at the national level. Like, yeah, I like ADUs, but it comes down to that local town approving that. Um, so here's the thing that I'd love to see more open conversation. I've been saying this forever. Like, tell us where the $86.3 million is going to. Tell us who makes those decisions. Tell us where the account, like, I want to know what are our efforts over the next 12 months, 2025, to hold the $86.3 million accountable. Okay. Or did we give $86.3 million to, um, to politicians who are going to, like, in 2025 have little to no influence. Okay. That's the other thing was you have a one party control Senate, House, executive branch. It's all controlled by one party. So I don't know where the 86.3, but I would say half of the money, if you split it down the middle, $43 million doesn't mean anything because you have one party control. So you balance it out. You place your bet on both red and black, I guess red and blue in this case, to even it out. And now you've still got that $43 million or, $43 million working for you potentially.
Well, you're talking more nationally though. I mean, if they're putting money into, a town or a city, it's not necessarily, well, it's not going to necessarily go on the same federal
True.
lean, the same
Yeah.
federally.
Once you're getting into some of these local issues, I'd love to know from you guys listening, like, do you want NAR lobbying for local cities when these things come up? Do you want it to be the local board? Should that be something that NAR does? And then how do you decide, like, is it, how does Chicago get dollars versus
Well, it's so hard though too, because even
Alabama?
locally, like, in a lot of towns, like, the people get to vote, Like, so it's not always necessarily politically decided either.
That's, yeah, very true.
Yeah.
All right. So there's your NAR story.
It's a Chicagoan.
Chicagoan?
Oh, I think I had that right, Haley.
You
You
said
said
Chicagoan.
Ian. You're like Ian,
What
like
did
a
you say it was,
Chicago
Haley?
Chicagoan. A-N?
Chicagoan.
Chicagoan.
Yeah.
I had
Chicagoan.
I had it completely wrong then. The
Ian.
way you said
Chicagoan.
it, Haley, made me sound like it was almost right.
Chicago.
I
Chicago.
don't have that good at
Chicagoan.
pronouncing things.
Chicagoan.
So great for the Chicagoans. All you Chicagoans, great news. NAR's got your back. They also have a building there. So a couple other things in the news, Nicole, I'll just mention. HUD potentially laying off half of its employees. I'll give you, we'll cover this here real quick. Here's the story. There's 9,600 employees, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, reporting suggests that it's culminating in a series of cuts that could include as much as 50% of the department's workforce, so 4,800. The FHA, which does FHA loans, is not included, the reporting says. And this is obviously coming from the White House, cost cutting inside the federal government. They've had their eyes on HUD in particular. Doge is in the story, in the news a lot. But I mean, listen, and like these Doge efforts on the federal government, Nicole.
Yes.
I'd be curious. This is why I'm asking for accountability on NAR. I'd just be curious, like, how much waste is in that 86 million? Like, you can show this, Haley, if you want. There's a tweet out there from Elon Musk, obviously heading up Doge, that according to the Social Security database, these are the numbers of people in each age bucket with the death field set to false. So they're just like still receiving benefits. You have 4.7 million from 100 to 109. Okay, there's 100-year-olds. Then you have 3.6 million that are 110 years old to 119 years old. Then you have 3.4 million that are between the ages of 120 and 129. Then you have 3.9 million from ages 130 to 139. Do you know any 138-year-olds?
I don't know that there's really anybody over the age of 114, right? I feel like I need to Google that.
You have 3.5 million people between the ages of 140 and 149. 1.3 million.
We're not talking about one person. You're talking about 3 million?
Yeah. 3.5 million between the ages of 140 and 149. They obviously.
So again, the oldest person is a Brazilian nun, and she's 116.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of people outliving her in America, apparently.
Clearly, but she's the oldest.
We have 1,039 between the age of 220 and 229, according to this Social Security database. 1,039, 220 to
Wait, are they getting
229.
survivor benefits? Are you saying? Or
Um,
these actual people are getting like,
their death field is set to false, so they could potentially be still, somebody could be getting payments. I mean, it shows that there is, like you look at somebody's CRM, it's like, hey, how you drive in your business, and you look at their CRM and it's a disaster. Okay. They haven't communicated with anybody. There's no information filled out. They don't know addresses. Um, none of that. They don't have any drips set up. It's like,
yeah.
okay, you have this system, but it's not updated. Like, we have this Social Security database, but it's clearly not
I guess I'm
updated.
just not understanding. Like, he was in, like, why didn't we do this the first time we were in, like, power?
Well, I guess what Trump says is he got sucked into the bureaucracy of DC. This is what he says. I'm not defending. I'm just saying he was, brought in a lot of the wrong people. And now
Mhm.
he's got people like Elon Musk going in there and figuring. So that's what he says. I'm not saying I'm on that side,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
um,
Because I thought that was the original reason why we brought him in the first time was because he wasn't a politician, but then he got
yeah,
swayed in.
but what he says, I'm just giving you what he says. I can't
Yeah,
defend. I don't know what he does, but
just asking.
he's saying that he had to learn DC. It took him 4 years to figure out where the corruption lies, and now he's coming in like no holds barred and potentially cleaning house. And going back to the cleaning house, I would, whether you like this Doge thing and you hate it, you whatever the deal is, I'd like to see some of that house cleaning at NAR. Now, going back to the house cleaning that we might actually see, which is this HUD. According to Bloomberg law, the cuts are focused on a few key offices, those that enforce civil right laws, that compile housing market data. Remember last week when I said like NAR's
Yeah,
compiling housing market data? Like, we have so many sources for that now,
right.
that do you actually need to spend money on it?
Yeah.
Well, the federal government's saying, like, does HUD really need to compile our housing market data when there's so much of it readily available? You can watch the hot sheet with BAM if you wanted to. And then
Ooh, are you putting in like an application to be hired by the
no,
president?
no, but I'm just saying you can watch that for free on YouTube. You can just subscribe to this YouTube channel. Okay, so here's civil rights enforcement at HUD. That's on the chopping block. HUD research functions. But also, one of the things that could be impacted is disaster recovery. HUD's disaster recovery office also provides support for FEMA, and so there's a bunch of implications that could happen here. HUD provides a wide variety of essential services to improving the state of housing across the country and help provide pathways to public-private partnerships and community investment, while also giving vulnerable population opportunities for financing that would be otherwise a challenge to secure. I would love, because of the affordability issues across the country in housing, I would, and I just like everybody's thoughts on this. I would be a proponent of some of these issues going back to the states as opposed to being federally financed. So like NAR is pumping $86 million into all these candidates, and they get on there and they ask dumb questions to people like Jerome Powell and what have you, and they don't do anything locally. They come up with no solutions for their state, for their cities, for their counties, no solutions. So if they actually had to operate in problem solving behaviors locally, and you put this kind of back on the states, you might actually see more of you might see an importance on these issues, as opposed to just like, HUD's going to give us some money and we'll do the bare minimum with the federal funds. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is people who rely on some of these benefits that HUD provides, the programs. HUD programs spur investments like libraries, community centers, at times infrastructure like sewage, roads, transit. To me, a lot of those things should be local. That's where I would stand. You may say, no, I think the federal government should pay for local libraries, community centers, local sewage, local roads, local transit. Like when I drive, one of the things that's interesting about driving in Florida is the roads are in such better shape than when I drive on the roads in Connecticut.
Well, because you guys are not, you don't have snow and like salt and plows and like a little different.
Agents. Our most profitable client is someone we've already worked with, a lifetime client. How do we get more of those? We stay in front of them with value. Delivering cupcakes and drop-bys, that's cute, but continuing to remind those we've worked with in the past how much we're still in the game and how much we're separating ourselves from everybody else is what it's all about. That's where reminder media comes in. Branded, digital, and physical magazines that you can deliver to your clients, and nobody else is doing this. I love the product because you can tell a longer story than a postcard. Just sold or just listed is boring. It goes from here to the trash can. A magazine with the impact you're making on the community, what you're doing to separate yourself from everybody else, and the knowledge you have about the local market, that's something somebody might read, leave on the coffee table, pass it to a friend who's thinking about buying or selling. It's something nobody's doing, and it's a way to stay in front of those that you care about and want to continue to work with for a lifetime. Try Reminder Media and get a BAM sample with the link down below. Try Reminder Media today. You won't regret it. Yeah. So you would think Connecticut should be repairing these roads more often, but like the road that I don't know the last time that thing's been paved. I mean, it's years. There's there's potholes when I walk to the cigar lounge and stuff, but that's all the road. That's 95 in Connecticut. That's all the roads in Connecticut are crumbling. They're falling apart. One of the like if you just take Connecticut, Nicole, for an example,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody, you can look up this information for your state. Connecticut had a rainy day fund in 2017 of $220 million. Nothing. They were almost bankrupt. Today, it's over $4 billion. And so now they're trying to figure out how to spend it. Like one way would be like the roads. They have tourism and all this kind of stuff. So they've had a healthy rainy day fund for years. But, how your politicians in a state spend the money, they drained the rainy day fund in Connecticut on a lot of, quite frankly, on a lot of like social programs. Okay. And then the infrastructure crumbled, where a place like Florida decided, let's invest in infrastructure, invest for future migration. And the roads are in really good shape. To me, roads, like HUD shouldn't bail out Connecticut because they've spent their money on crappy stuff. The federal government shouldn't be paying for
But is HUD
Connecticut's.
set up just to bail people? Is it just there to bail people
No,
out?
but I'm just saying that there's a lot of these programs that HUD supports, and if we are looking at cutting things, yeah, HUD shouldn't be like putting in roads in Connecticut because they've made bad financial decisions over the years when other states seemingly can figure this out. And so, I think that the things that I would be concerned about losing from the HUD perspective would be disaster recovery, need more of that, not less, civil rights, those types of things. But yeah, like the research that they're doing and supporting local communities from a federal dollar, those should be put back on those local areas. If you have hold your local politicians accountable. If they're spending like drunken sailors, like Connecticut did from 2009 to 2017, draining their funds on silly stuff, while places like Florida built up, a huge bank account, then those politicians should be held accountable. Okay. That'd be my take on that. What's yours, right? Like, what do you think, Nicole? You live in Connecticut. Are you good with how,
Well, I guess I would need to better understand exactly what HUD is doing for Connecticut before I could actually address
well, not
that.
take HUD out of it. Do you
Yeah.
want the federal government, or do you want your own state? And it doesn't have to be the state you live in. I'm saying, do you want states to stand up on their own 2 feet, or do you want the federal government?
Well, I think that the federal government can certainly like help support. I mean, again, our roads aren't just driven on by Connecticut residents, though, either. So
So then
I
you would be for tolls because most states
I'm
have
not against.
tolls
I'm certainly not against tolls. I feel like
for
every
out of
other
state.
state has tolls at this point. So no, I mean, I'm definitely not against. Definitely not
The
against tolls, which again would be then placed back on.
Yeah, I don't think the federal like I don't want federal funds because the argument is like people drive between New York and Boston. If
No,
you're
for
that
sure,
passionate
but
about put tolls on it.
I guess I would just need to see exactly what the federal government is actually providing for a road that then the state is feeling like they're not that they're taking this sort of the ownership off of themselves. That's all.
Hmm.
Because I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know that Connecticut's saying like, nope, like we're not doing roads because hey, like the United States will take care of them for us.
Well, they have a huge pension debt. That's why they're not doing anything. I said the $4 billion rainy day fund, but they have an $8 billion pension debt. They've overpromised and underdelivered. But anyways, going into wrapping up HUD, Housing Wire reached out to HUD for comment. They did not receive immediate reply. But this report published by Politico on Friday included a statement from an official who was granted anonymity.
Ooh, this is fun. I like this game. Try it again.
Who was able to stay anonymous
Yeah.
to speak to the goals of the Doge task force. Task force is carrying out President Trump's broader efforts to reduce, restructure, and streamline the federal government to serve the American people at the highest standard. The official said, but promised HUD would continue to deliver on its mission to serve rural, tribal, and urban communities. That's the HUD mission, to serve those communities from the federal level. Looks like they might be on the chopping block and doing that. What's your thoughts? What have you seen in your local community that HUD really benefited? Do you support HUD staying at the level of workforce that it's at, 9,600, or are you in support of going down to the 4,800?
I wonder too what kind of impact like the Great Recession had on HUD and what like what is like what are they carrying now? Right? Like you think about all those.
What are you talking about? Employee level?
Yeah, well, in
I
terms of
bet you
like
it's more, Nicole.
well, but like HUD home, like think about how many homes went into foreclosure that HUD was then responsible for. Like we don't maybe we don't necessarily see as much of that anymore. So it's like maybe that's even a place to examine, like
HUD employees. I'm just going to HUDarchives.gov. So it's the government site.
yep.
What did I say? They're 9,600 right now, employees?
Yeah.
9,200 in 2007. 9,400 in 2008, 9,500 in 2009. Like a lot of things haven't been getting the attention that they've been getting on the federal government, on how the money is spent, like they have the last 30 days. Nothing really changes. Things, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's HUD, whether it's, what's the other one they're looking at this week? The IRS. Like there's just been, it's just, they're processing retirement paperwork under a cave. Did you see that story? Like
I did not know. There's so
just
many. I have to almost turn my phone off sometimes.
right, but things just don't change because nobody's paying attention to them. And then, why does the DMV seem like it's you're employing these people as a taxpayer, but why does it seem so inefficient? Well, it's run by the bureaucracy and they don't want it to change. They want it to stay the same. So now that everything's under the microscope, we're seeing some of these things, and I'm curious on everyone's thoughts on this. This one in particular obviously has to do with housing. Again, not making it political. Like, just what's your thought? Like, what's a better use of funds? Is it local? Is it state? Is it federal? There's no wrong answer in that. I think the open debate is healthy. Love to know where you stand on that, and love for you to subscribe to the pod if you're getting value between the real word and obviously the hot sheets up on this YouTube channel, as well as the walkthrough. Love for you to consider subscribing to YouTube. Leave us a review if you listen over on Apple and Spotify. Nicole, that's
Nice
a wrap.
chatting.
Nice, very nice chatting.
I mean, right now we're buried in snow and you're hanging out in 70-degree weather. So you're
It is-
winning.
It's very nice, and the roads are nice. So
Beautiful roads. Enjoy your roads today.
very nice. I won't go on them, but very nice roads. All right, keep it real, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.